Hi y'all, it's Andrea at Sewspire.com, and today I'm here to show you how to sew this gorgeous messenger bag. I want to offer up a special thanks to my friend Suzette, who sent me this beautiful fabric that I used for the exterior and for the interior. You are so sweet, Suzette, and I absolutely love my new bag. What sets this bag apart from the rest is the patchwork flap. So I'm really excited to show you how this project comes together. And I just want to mention before we get started, we're getting super duper close to the 50,000 subscriber mark, in which we're going to have a 50,000 subscriber celebration. So if you are just joining us, please do click subscribe and hit the notification bell. And then at the end, if you enjoyed the tutorial, I'd love it if you gave it a thumbs up as well. So shall we get started? So for this project, what really sets it apart is the flap on the exterior, and that is going to be crafted from various size remnants. What I want to do is craft a panel that measures approximately 14 inches wide by 12 to 13 inches tall. And I just took various bits of fabric here and I pieced that together, and then I backed that with some quilt batting and then ran a few rows of top stitching across there to really give it its definition, and I just think it's so fun. Then you're going to want to cut a like size piece for the interior, and you're just going to position that right sides facing on your patchwork panel there. And then I want to stitch down the sides and across the base of that flap. You have the option, if you like, to angle that. And so the way I angle my flaps is I fold that fabric in half, right sides facing, and get those corners lined up. And then I just come across that and cut off a little triangle there. And I like to do that at the same time because then everything has equal measurement on it there, including that lining. So now I'm going to stitch using 3/8 of an inch seam allowance down the sides around that angle and across the bottom of that flap. And then because you've used that narrow seam allowance there, you generally don't have to trim off any of that excess fabric. So go ahead and turn that right sides out, and then poke out those corners and give it a really good press. And then once you get that pressed, go ahead and top stitch around those finished edges. And then that's what the flap looks like when it's finished. So I'm just going to set that aside and start working on the exterior. So the exterior of this is going to have a two-way divided pocket on the front of that. You also have the option of putting an additional pocket on the rear if you like, or you could just have the pocket on the rear. You of course could also just omit the pockets entirely. And so these pockets measure 18 by 9 inches tall, and there are 2 cuts of material for each pocket. And what I have done is take those long edges and press them over on each side, and then I layer that fabric to create the pocket. And I like to let a little bit of that lining fabric peep up over the top there, so it adds some definition to the pocket. And then I just top stitch across that to secure. And then I do like to add a second row of stitching right across the top there. Okay, so the top edge of the pocket is complete. Then what I like to do is press in that center stitch line so that when I divide that pocket, I can stitch nice and straight. And so both the exterior and the interior body panels for this bag measure 18 inches across by 15 inches tall. You're going to notch out a 2.5 inch square on the bottom left and right hand corners of all 4 panels, and then you're going to position your pocket panels, which the interior pockets are crafted in the exact same way, approximately 3.5 inches from the top of that panel. And so the top is the portion that does not have any notches. And then just measure and make sure that you have that pocket level, and then go ahead and clip that in place, and that's what that looks like when you get it on there. So you have a little bit of spacing there from the notch, and so now you're just going to stitch all the way across the bottom there, and you can see I have a little bit of that accent fabric peeping out along the bottom of the pocket. Then once the base is secure, then go ahead and divide that down the center. And that's what the panel looks like with the pocket attached to it. And then you're going to have a like size panel for the back of the bag with those notches out of the bottom left and right hand corners. And you're going to position that right sides facing on top of that pocket panel there. And then using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, you're going to stitch down the left and the right hand sides and across the base. At this point, do not stitch in those notched corners. Okay, so I've stitched the sides and the base, and now I want to reach inside and I want to align that base seam with that side seam, and then stitch across that corner using the same 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, and that's going to give the bag its depth. And you repeat that process for the opposite corner. And then at the top, approximately 3 inches down, go ahead and trim away that excess from the seam allowance there. Trim that down to about 1/4 inch. And that's just because we're going to fold that top edge over. And so you want to try and minimize some of that bulk there at the seam. So now you can turn the exterior right sides out and go ahead and press out those corners. And using that notched corner method, the side seam and the base seam should line up beautifully. And this fabric is just so fabulous, is it not? There's so many colors in there. Oh, it's just beautiful. It makes me so happy. Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. Okay, so this is what the exterior will look like. I'll have the 2 wide pockets there, and then across the back it's just plain, but again you have the option of adding pockets across the back if you like. So now what I want to do is take that top edge and fold it over about 1/2 inch and go ahead and clip that down at the sides to begin, and then in the center at the front and rear, and that will help you get everything nice and straight. And then you can add a few more clips or pins if that's what you're working with to keep that edge even. And then you're going to use the exact same process to craft the interior. The only difference may be you might want to divide the interior pockets in thirds, and that's the perfect size for holding pens and charger cords and things, or reading glasses. And so I already have my interior crafted, and so the interior then will remain wrong side out, and you're going to take that top edge and fold it over. And I did use some warm and natural quilt batting for the interior. And so you're just going to fit that right inside of the exterior. And I like to put the pockets on the opposite side. So my interior pockets would be along that back wall, and then my front exterior pockets are obviously on the front. And this kind of allows an even weight distribution in the bag. And so I begin by lining up those side seams first, and then I work my way around. As long as your seam allowances were consistent, everything should line up nice. Have a good fit there. Fun, fun, fun. This definitely is a happy bag. Okay, so now I have my flap closure here, and give you it right. Oh, wow. Okay, so that's what it looks like with the pockets underneath the flap. The benefit of keeping the pockets on the front there under the flap is then the contents of the pocket are more secure. You also have the option, if you like, of reversing that and having the pockets on the back so they're just really accessible. But I'm going to go ahead and leave that back, just plain fabric, no pockets. And so I want to fit this raw edge of the flap closure in between the interior and the exterior layers, and I'm only tucking that in about an inch because I don't want to lose too much of that gorgeous patchwork detail on the flap there. And for this part of the project, you probably will need some pins. And what I do once I get that flap tucked inside is I pin the outer edges of the flap and the interior and the exterior so I can make sure that nothing shifts. And then I come into the center of that and get a pin through all of those layers, and then I can add a couple more there midway just to make sure that nothing shifts, and I will show you what that looks like. And you want to make sure that the interior top edge is level with the exterior top edge. And so here's what that's going to look like. So pretty. And so I'm going to install my snaps on the flap and then from the inside of the pocket. So I'll be able to install those at the very end. But now is definitely the time to give some consideration to the type of closure that you want to use and determine if you need to go ahead and install any portion of that now. So the next step for me is to craft the strap, and I really like this strap because it's nice and wide and it's padded with some quilt batting in there. So this strap is crafted like my traditional straps, the same folding method where you get the 4 layers and the batting in the channel. But the difference is it's 8 inches wide by approximately 44 inches long. I just use a full cut of fabric there. You can still see the selvage is even on there. And I press that fabric in half long ways and then bring those outer edges inward to meet on that center press line. And then I insert a 4-inch wide strip of quilt batting there, so it gives 2 layers of quilt batting when I fold that over and press. So for this, I'm going to add 4 rows of stitching. I'm going to begin down that open edge to secure that, and then I'll come along the opposite edge, and then I'll add 2 more rows of top stitching. Okay, and then that's what that looks like with the 4 rows of top stitching there. And again, it's going to be such a comfortable, nice, wide strap there. And then depending upon how long your torso is, you can probably wear this bag crossbody. So I just like to trim off that little bit of extra there at the edge. And then the strap is going to get centered on that side seam between the interior and the exterior layers there. And I do tuck that in there about 1.5 inches because you want to have enough of the strap inside that you can run 2 rows of stitching across there to just reinforce it. And this is a good time you can test fit it. So the strap's not so long that I can't carry it comfortably on my shoulder, but then it's just long enough that if I wanted, I could also wear it cross-body. And so now the next step is to go ahead and position this up on your machine deck and sew all the way around. Take your time. You're going to want to start right at the strap there, reinforce the strap, and then go nice and slow around that flap to make sure nothing shifts. And make your way all the way around, and then go in and add a 2nd row of stitching at each strap to just reinforce that. Alright, so I've made it all the way around that top edge there, and then I went in on the sides and added that 2nd row of stitching. The last step for me would be to install the snaps, and I'm actually going to go to the Hobby Lobby this afternoon and purchase some decorative snaps for that. So I won't be able to show you how I do that, but I do have a lot of tutorials that demonstrate how I install the snaps. I just use a small hammer. A lot of you have snap presses. That's a great option. But the bag is just precious. Again, a special thank you to Suzette for the gorgeous fabric. It's so beautiful, and I'm really excited to load it up. I just want to give you the finished measurements on this so you have an idea of how big that is. So right across the top is 14 inches, and then across the base is approximately 11.5 inches, and then the depth on this is 5 inches, and the height is about 10.75 inches, maybe 10.5 there. It's a great size for everyday use. And that patchwork flap really makes each piece a one of a kind. So I will be back next week with another inspired tutorial. Don't forget to click the thumbs up if you enjoyed this video, and please do subscribe to the channel, because as mentioned, we're getting super close to that 50,000 subscribers celebration that I am planning for you, which happens to coincide with my 50th birthday. So I will see you next week. Thank you for sewing with me, and as always, please know the creative genius in me will be celebrating the creative genius in you. Have a beautiful week, everyone.